Hello and welcome to Healing Tips from the Heart, Intuition with Helpers, Healers, and Guides. I am your host, Dr. Lori Hops, licensed psychologist, writer, and artist. I've explored mind, body, and spirit related to intuition, or your personal guidance system, since early childhood. Meet my guests who have learned from their personal and professional lives to explore vast realms of knowing, synchronicities, and overcoming challenges. Their stories may inspire you with tools to enhance your daily living and relationships. Hello, everyone, and welcome my special guest for today, Alfred Heath.
Hi,
Alfred.
Lori. Hi, everybody.
Hi, it's so good to see you. I want to introduce you to everyone. Alfred Heath is a licensed professional counselor and energy healing practitioner. He has trained in a wide variety of methods, focusing on meditation and dream work, A Course in Miracles, Buddhism, energy work, higher consciousness, transmissions, energy psychology, neurolinguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and conventional talk therapies. He's also a master trainer with a specific method from his mentor, Dr. Larry Nims, and this is called Be Set Free Fast, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes. And Alfred has also created other methodologies for self-actualization and self-transcendence, one of them called SOAR, and a consciousness-based technology for designing and transmitting energy healing sessions called 0 Point Intention. He's currently retired from a career in civil service, and he continues to help clients and therapists learn about energy psychology and help counsel his clients and mentor energy psychology practitioners with a deep, compassionate heart and a brilliant, I will say, a brilliant mind. And it is my extreme pleasure to welcome you. And I'd like the audience to know that I've met you through the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology, where we both serve now on the board of directors. And I've had the pleasure of learning side by side with you at our ASAP conferences in person, and just to get to know you as just a delightful human being. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's great to be here. Great to be with you. I'm really excited to have fun together talking about neat stuff.
Yeah, great. Is there anything else you'd like to share at this point? Adding to the bio that I read and just meeting you.
So a significant part of my ego level identity is that of a drummer. So I've been playing drums since about the age of 12, and I've played in jazz bands and rock bands and pop bands and pit bands and orchestras and things like that in my youth. And I've recently picked it back up after dropping it for a while, starting in my early 30s. So that's an exciting part of my life. That brings it that juiciness.
I love it. The healing beauty and connection of life with music and performing and playing for yourself and others. And thank you for sharing that. That's really lovely. And I'm so glad it's back in your life again.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So is there anything you'd want to start off with people knowing more about some of these technologies that I mentioned, processes, because they may not have ever heard of them before?
Sure. I guess uh, probably the most important thing in terms of what I want to relate is that none of this is the kind of magic people think of as wishful thinking fiction or woo-woo stuff. It's actually it's the way we're engineered as human spirits, that there's nothing, while some people may have more capacity than others, the same way that some people are sprinters and some people are long distance runners and some people are better spectators, but everybody can walk. Most everybody can walk, most everybody can run. It's a natural part. So it is with with energy and with consciousness. And the more you get into those more refined levels, the greater the level of apparent sameness, equality, oneness, that's beyond that. So there's nothing special about any one individual. Things that you appreciate, sure, things that are unique at a person level, but at essence, and certainly within our energy capacities, we all have this as a natural ability. In truth, it's our birthright. And so, what's important to me most is that the more people embrace this, the more it becomes embraceable for others who might not have um, before them. So that it grows and expands, and that we all get to evolve into our realized selves.
Beautiful. Thank you. And for those who maybe are unfamiliar, they might say, oh, that sounds cool, but what is the it or the this that we're talking
Yes.
about that
Yes.
we all have
So
access to? Yeah.
so one of the ways that I differ a little bit from the way that uh, it's often described is that I start with consciousness being a unified, if you like, whole, a singularity. And so we've given names to that are religiously oriented, that are mystically oriented, that are shamanistically oriented, um, culturally oriented. But that consciousness is we are all an aspect of that. So that consciousness is beyond time, it's beyond space, and it's beyond matter. And matter, by matter I mean also energy. So that it manifests or unfolds in space-time, right? So there becomes an individual me, an individual you. The first manifestation being energy, right? And the slower the energy, the more solid something seems, right? So that from consciousness manifesting as energy, manifesting as matter in space time, um, we don't leave that initial state, that original state of consciousness. We just experience it differently. We experience ourselves as individuals uh, in a certain time and space and place and context, and therefore dramas unfold and all the rest of it. Um, so so from a perspective of consciousness, everything comes as an after effect. So if when we identify with consciousness, that gives us almost an automatic level of competency and mastery through our intention, our awareness, our expectancy in how energy unfolds and manifests. And then that energy that unfolds and manifests has impact on denser energy, being the body, maladies, psychology, um, psychopathology, emotions, relations, connections that we have with each other. So, so my perspective is when you're aligned with and have an appreciation for what we are as consciousness. Now I'm only one perspective within consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So every place I put my attention in consciousness, there it is. There I am also. So if I think about Mars, I can't think about Mars with part of that consciousness activating. I can't be aware of something without part of part of that energy activating because of it's being recognized within consciousness by another perspective in consciousness. And so it sounds kind of complex, but it's really not. It's really simple. So that we end up with illusions of movement and motion, and one thing being over here, one thing being over here, this person having a different opinion than this person, different political parties,
Hmm.
wars, love affairs, all those other things. It's just consciousness playing itself, playing with, having a game with
Okay.
itself.
Couple images come to mind as you're talking. One of them is a pyramid and the other is a reverse pyramid. So it
Okay.
depends where your focus is, but let's just take a traditional
Yes.
triangle pyramid with the top being
Okay.
narrow and the bottom being broad, or the sun shining. Let's say the sun is shining at the top of the pyramid and the light is filtering down and out. And so pure consciousness could be that top of the pyramid or the source. And
Right.
then it influences and infiltrates through everything that's below it at the bottom of the pyramid. And your life experience might be only one point at the bottom of the pyramid. But if you want to connect to someone else or something else in that pyramid space, you're going to connect through consciousness to it. So it's like everything is connected to everything else, but within that contained space. So I don't know if that's an image that matches what you're talking about.
That matches what appears to happen.
Okay.
That matches what appears to happen because everything is sourced in consciousness. So, and yet we still have this idea of time and space, matter and energy, light and dark. So that as it manifests, that's how it seems to unfold. That's how it seems to happen in this space-time experience. But in truth, um, it's just all consciousness
Okay.
manifesting in something.
All right. And so, in order to have an effect, maybe different than what we are experiencing, which is often why people come in for help because they're
Yes.
not satisfied with the status quo. They either want more or they want less or something different. Then it seems that if we're all consciousness, that what we need to do is remember that and operate from that perspective rather than from the limited illusion that we're separate. Is that
Yes.
fair?
Yeah. Absolutely fair. Absolutely true. Also easier said than done when someone's in it, right? When you're in it,
Yeah.
that all that sounds good, sounds nice. Yeah, I wish I could have that, but it seems like, you know, pie in the sky. Um, and that's where the relationship comes in, where the dyad between the practitioner and the client, even at a mundane level, the practitioner can have an appreciation of that client's potential,
Hmm.
of that client's essential nature, of that client's source. They could even have a sense of being at a higher level of consciousness, all at one, right? All of that has an effect. All of that has an impact that is experienced at some level by the client. So at one level, it's sort of like the entrainment of a frequency of one very coherent frequency. We'll call that the practitioner or the therapist, and one in less coherent frequency, and let's call that the suffering that's with the client. So a coherent frequency will always uh, cause a less coherent frequency to entrain or to match, right? So for that time being, even just the presence of a therapist who is in balance with themselves, in a sense of groundedness, being centered, all of that has an energetic effect at one level. It has a neurological effect at the level of mirror neurons, and the cues of safety that come from that in the uh, nonverbal communication of the facial expression, the eye dilation, the prosody or softness of the voice, all these things is communicated at all these levels. And so, and then you add to that the actual intervention,
Mm-hmm.
the actual
Okay.
intervention of what's said and what's done and what's guided to be said and done on the part of the client. And so these things start to match up. They're facilitated by this context of of what let's call entrainment to a more coherent and harmonious energy presence.
So
But
that,
that
mhm.
but but that coherence is just a reflection of the natural state of unified singularity consciousness,
Okay.
but it's experienced in this space-time.
Okay. So if I could summarize and maybe translate and see if I get it right, is that when when we get caught up in suffering, for example, we lose track of the remembrance of who we really are in this oneness, in this consciousness. And we get kind of stuck. It's like we get sidelined or stuck or trapped or darker or diminished or something. The suffering takes over as being the primary frequency that's being expressed and experienced. And in order to break out of that, we need to temporarily get like a jump start, like on a car's engine,
Right?
to be around a frequency that is closer to that connection with the universal.
Yes.
And when the therapist has practiced that and they're in coherence themselves, they're more likely to influence, to be the stronger power in the room, the more intelligent, coherent energy frequency. And then it's like it jump starts the person in suffering possibly to bridge that. And then to connect not only with what the therapist is bringing, but maybe even remembering their own innate or connecting to their own innate higher frequencies. Is that
That's right.
fair to say?
Yeah, both of those things, because one, when the therapist represents that, models that, it has an influence in the dyad. Um, but also um, as the therapist perceives that ultimate truth about the other person, that also opens a door to them re-experiencing themselves as who they are. So all those things make a difference. And I would say that it sets the stage, it creates the environment for the other levels of change. In some cases, things like this can be instantaneous, depending on how receptive the other person is. You hear about individuals like the hugging saint,
Yes.
um, that where simply the presence creates a change in the person, a profound change in the person.
Yes.
Um, um, but in the absence of that, whatever can be shared and mustered by way of that coherent presence will facilitate. And then that's where things like techniques and things like that come in to take the place of of the compelling presence that would be at that other manifest level of consciousness in
Yep.
time space. So
Yep.
so most of us are somewhere in there, somewhere in between, um, from all technique and all practice and theory and communication and interaction at the psychological level to the neurological level to the energy stimulating and balancing level to the consciousness level, and it can be a combination of those things, but it's all good. And the more, to me, the more of the higher consciousness stuff gets in there, including the subtle energy influences, the more rapid the change and the transformation that can manifest.
Beautiful. Oh my. I'm just letting that sink in for a minute. I can personally relate to everything you've talked about in my own life. I've had the transformational, instantaneous you're swimming in the sea of miraculousness just because this other being, this enlightened being, is you're in their presence, or even just you're thinking about them. Um,
Yes.
and I've also had the micro mini, alignments
Hmm.
from, let's say, physical therapy or energy practices or homeopathy. So in like, oh yeah, that exact nerve ending is being stimulated, and so, and everything in between, because when you get those big wow moments, it sort of reconstitutes your whole being. And if you were to be, let's say, hooked up to machines measuring output of whatever physiology, you might notice like dramatic changes, and that's how healing can happen and how you can get cured of things and so on, or have things infused in you that are positive. Um, and also on the micro level, when you have that little nerve bundle fire a little bit differently, it can cause a cascade of bigger things as well. So it
Yes,
almost doesn't matter sometimes where
that's
the
right.
intervention happens because it's all connected. I think it's a matter of being in an allowance. And that can come from extreme suffering of saying, I've tried everything and I'm at my wit's end and I'll do anything. And it can also come from complete surprise, like when something suddenly changes in your life in an instant and you didn't even know that you were like heading towards something miraculous, but there it
Yes.
is.
Yeah.
So anyway, I can relate to everything that you're talking about. And at some point, maybe technique doesn't quite matter. What matters is the match between whoever's showing up in the moment and where they're willing or able to shift into.
Yeah.
It could be as
Yeah.
simple as the poke on the shoulder, or it could be the
Right.
tsunami or something in between.
Right. Right. I, and I think that can be relatively unique to wherever that person is, whatever their experience and frame of reference is to what they actually let in, you
Yeah.
know. Um, um, but
Or let out.
or let out. Yeah, indeed, indeed. Um, where I started with all this was uh experientially experiencing well, first experiencing suffering and pain. Coming from a family that had a lot of gifts and difficulties at the same time, people who were dealing with their own issues and PTSDs and that, and ways that they tried to cope with that from outside sources, alcohol, behavior, um, trying to be well, trying to be, happier. I didn't see it as a sickness or something along those lines. I saw it as wanting to have a better life. And so I became very interested in things like hypnosis, self-hypnosis and meditation and things like this as ways of bringing, happiness and balance into my own life. And in the course of doing that, psychic events started unfolding, and I started having more and more of that. Um, and then from the psychic, things became more spiritual, and I started having profound mystical experiences. Not that I was intending to, but they unfolded, they happened, and it changed me, And
Mm,
um, at that point in my life, I was not actively seeking to be a therapist or to study psychology academically. It was a pastime. It was a hobby. It was an interest. It was a personal interest, and so it was, over a course of, I'd say, maybe a couple of 7-year cycles, that it got to the place that it felt like I wanted to get involved actively in the pursuit of helping people get better, through energy healing initially, and then through psychotherapy, and then the in between place. I discovered energy psychology, and then things just sort of evolved and
mm,
continued to I think kind of distill and refine, and including, to give credit to those discoveries of others who were inspired to create a method that met my journey of the distillation of what I had been learning up to that point, Be Set Free Fast being one, and then what led to 0 point intention, um, as what I felt was a refinement toward consciousness, toward operating from and with consciousness rather than the components that it unfolds into in our space-time experience.
Okay.
So
Can you give an example for people who maybe don't know anything about this? And it's a new language for them.
okay, so let's take first Be Set Free Fast, for instance.
Mhm.
Be Set Free Fast is a psychological method, but we have all of this capacity that operates under our awareness, right? And that's been understood to be, it's been named subconscious mind. Um, uh, and in this, within the subconscious mind, there's all kinds of things going on, things that we've taken on board from our learning, from our environment. Some would say from past life experiences also. Some
Mhm.
would say from ancestral pass-ons multi-generationally, either through the behavior of those adults and others around us, or through genetics, epigenetics, changes in the DNA expression that were influenced by at a grandparent or great grandparent level, but that got inherited. That's been shown scientifically that actually does happen. Um, so we have all of this experience, but we also have all this capacity, as I mentioned before, in the energy matrix, in the neurology, in how the brain works, in how the cells work, in how biophotons operate within the physical being, and these things have a function, and part of that is our survival, our security, our sense of safety, our sense of belonging, our sense of community, our sense of self-actualization, self-transcendence. All these things have correlates within the physical body and within the energy matrix that are involved in those activities happening for us. So one of the problems that we run into is all the stuff that we take on board from life events. It could be a birth trauma. It could be something awful that happened to the mother while the child is in utero. It
Mhm.
could be abuse or neglect, or in some cases, it could just be getting lost at the fair when you're
Mhm.
5 years old. These
Mhm.
things, the more potent the emotional experience, the more it gets imprinted in part of our being, and that's neurologically, uh, energetically, uh, and that stored information is like it's a learning. But that level of learning, at that level of development, we might have a very immature or distorted idea of what it means. But those things stay together. And in Be Set Free Fast, it's called a program. And that program operates almost as an instinct, right? It's in service of one of those levels of life affirming impulse of survival, safety, security, belonging, self-actualization. But it's buggy programming. It's the experience corrupted that that data. And so that data reactivates when we come into contact with an experience that is associated with that original core, difficult, traumatic experience, that emotional baggage, that traumatic residue that is stored and that reactivates. So that's why we have reactions to things, that are out of proportion to what the actual situation is. That's why we get into serial relationships that end up having the same problem of abuse or neglect or cheating or or other things. So that's why we have a tendency toward uh, maybe not being able to hold a job down, or getting angry, or disliking women, or disliking men, or all these sort of things that trigger these sorts of reactions and moods and perceptions and beliefs. We don't realize that something else is driving the bus.
Hmm.
We look at the situation and think that the situation is causing me to feel and act and think this way, but it's actually the triggered programs. So with Be Set Free Fast, we utilize the natural capacities of unlearning that we also have with these mechanisms within ourself, within our neurology. It makes sense if you think about it that we have to have these capacities, because how else could we survive if we didn't adapt and learn when the environment changed, adapt to true threats, and then adapt when things were actually safe and the same situation wasn't threatening. Um, so something changes to bring you forward in learning, so that you unlearn and you adapt and modify. Be Set Free Fast operates on the assumption that we can access that capacity. So we interact directly with what our understanding of the subconscious mind is. Now, in this model of the subconscious mind, it's everything that has anything to do with cognition, emotion, experience that is not in conscious awareness. Right? So that includes your neurology, that includes your muscle memory, your organ memory, your cellular memory, your epigenetic stuff, your energy matrix, all that stuff, because obviously it's not conscious. You can turn your mind to it if you really focus, but it's still there when you're not focused on it. It's still doing something. So
Hmm.
it's an interaction. It's the development of a relationship between that deeper aspect of ourselves that we call subconscious mind, right? It's a psychological process, because it's for eliminating those programs, the emotional roots, the unresolved emotions that were experienced and stored from some experience. And then every triggering of them is like a tree growing, like branches of a tree. More gets added on to the overall until you get to a certain age, and then you have a personality tendency, or you
Hmm.
have diagnosis, or you have a repeating life problem, that a pattern that's problematic in your life, even if it's not diagnosable in some sort of psychological taxonomy.
Okay. So as you're talking, I'm seeing a patchwork quilt. Those old granny quilts with the little squares of fabric that get sewn together, and they make a pattern, or maybe just random colors and shape, patterns, whatever. But they get sewn together in a certain order. So being lost at the fair when you're 5 puts the green square next to the red, next to the purple, and then the one with polka dots. So when you see that pattern again later in life, you freak out as if you're being left at the fair
Right.
again. And
That's
so this
right.
unconscious untangling is like taking the threads out and
Yeah.
putting the pattern, the squares back out, and saying these can be handled in a multitude of directions, including not at all. Maybe we're
Yeah.
going to have a monochrome, or we're going to have a sunset, or we're going to, have a small squares or big ones or whatever, or make a star shape. And so you're reprogramming the patterning that was laid down. If you don't, then it keeps building up and building up, and then you have this one granny blanket that's all the squares look the same in terms of the patterning. So I was just seeing it visually in terms of that.
Okay. Okay. I think it's important to note in that when we're triggered, we don't have an instant memory of what the original program was about. We're reacting in that way to the current, what we're experiencing in the moment, or our our personal context in the moment, and we
Hmm.
don't have conscious visibility into what the original cause is. We're only aware of the trigger. And
Got
so
it.
we treat the trigger as if it's the cause,
Yes. So it
right?
is it is my dog that ate the homework right now,
Right,
and not, whatever happened before. Yeah. It
right,
is my partner who said blah 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 blah. It is
right.
the thing on the news. It is
Yeah,
the bad job performance review.
yeah.
That crazy
Like,
boss.
you hurt me. I hate you. I fear you.
Yeah.
But it can also, unfortunately, attract us to a situation where it is a threat
Hmm.
because of how we're wired through that programming. We can put ourselves in situations, encourage situations. I don't want to say it is anyone's fault if something bad happens to them, but at the same time, um, these kinds of programs alter our discernment. They alter our ability to have foresight and hindsight and
Hmm.
insight.
Hmm.
Those are all pricelessly valuable things in order to keep ourselves well and happy and safe. So with Be Set Free Fast, with regard to all those wonderful natural capacities of the subconscious mind, we have a dialogue directly with them. First, a set of instructions that say, hey, subconscious mind, from now on, whenever I notice some of this, some something that's out of balance that I either suspect or am open to possibly being a program, and I use this special word that I'm going to cue you to signal to eliminate all of those roots causing and contributing to this experience or this behavior or this physical symptom that have to do with programs.
Hmm.
And then, incredibly, wonderfully, the subconscious mind has this incredible capacity that's far beyond our conscious, capacity, operating speed, and all the rest of it to actually do that. So what happens is we use our cue, and it either does what we've asked or something else happens. When it does what we ask, we instantly start to feel more balanced, more centered, more grounded, more present, more alive. And we think about the same thing that even thinking about it, we got some of the emotional charge of the upset. We don't experience that anymore when we think about it, because
Hmm.
all those things got instantly sort of dismantled and dissolved at these other levels, or something else, some other emotion emerges. And if some other emotion emerges, it just means that whatever that was almost like a protective layer over something that was deeper and maybe darker or more troubling in some way. The
Hmm.
good news is you do the same thing when that awareness arises of that new emotion, new sense or thought. You can address that in the same way by using the cue. So uh, sometimes it feels like, oh, it's not going anywhere. On that scale of badness of from 1 to 9 or 1 to 10. Um, it was at an 8, and then it got down to a 6 and a 4, and now it's stuck at 3. Um, that usually means that there's some other, almost like Larry Nims calls them fail safes. Something's in the way to prevent it from going down any further. Maybe there's a sense of, oh, I won't be safe if I don't have this anymore, or I don't deserve it, or I need it because if I don't have it, I'll do something stupid, or any of a number of different scenarios. But the good news is that that's another distorted belief that has an emotional root linked to it, and we can address that as well. So it gets down to a place where we get that sense of peaceful, centered balance,
Hmm.
and then and then we finish the work. So it can happen. I think anyone who hasn't been initiated it into things like energy psychology and NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis and EMDR and things like this. It's hard to appreciate how rapidly these things can transpire, so that you end up, this journey of a single session is almost like a journey of a set of sessions
Yeah,
in a regular talking modality.
right.
Um, but not always. Sometimes it's super rapid. Sometimes it's more of a multi-session journey. I never guarantee to anyone how fast something's gonna get to the place that they want
Right.
for themselves. But I say it can be very rapid, but I can't promise that. Um, but I'll be with you through it all, and I'll make it as comfortable and rapid and safe and wholesome and enduring as I possibly can for you. And then we just sort of take things from there.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's a beautiful explanation. I feel like I'm right there with you in the consultation room. And I know that we're running low on time, but I want to kind of wrap it back around again, because you did mention some of these other approaches that are more intimately connected directly with that universal consciousness. So could you
Yes.
kind of bring us home through that, maybe?
Yeah, 0 point intention, another birthright. I talked about how the subconscious mind operates, and that's our birthright to interact with it that way. In the same way, I started off talking about consciousness, and that the fact that the consciousness initially manifests through these facets, these modes of consciousness: intention, awareness itself, intention, expectancy. And then when expectancy leads into something happening within time space, then there's that, I don't want to say passive, but receptive aspect of allowing. Those things actually manifest as polarities, let's say, of energy, because that's the first manifestation of consciousness, is energy, right? So what I realized was that those initial qualities, those initial facets, those initial modes have a supersedent effect on energy, so that the intention directs energy. And you've heard that well-worn phrase, the energy follows intention. That's because intention precedes energy. Awareness precedes energy, expectancy precedes energy, all in sort of different ways. So by getting into alignment with a higher or a more expanded state of consciousness, and then issuing an intention with the expectancy of it coming to pass, it has an effect on our space-time continuum.
Mm-hmm.
At what I would call the 0 point field, right? It's that continuous field of waveless energy that is everywhere. So when something is inscribed in this way, invoked this way in the 0 point field, when it manifests wherever it's intended. There's no transmission, let's say. Technically speaking, it's not really a transmission, because it doesn't go from me to somewhere else. It's in the 0 point field. It's inscribed there, and it unfolds from there. And in terms of our space-time experience, that's wherever that person is, wherever that situation is, whenever, however many people, that's what unfolds. It seems it might seem grandiose to say that you can intend 15 sessions for a couple hundred people with a single intention. But let me put it to the listeners, watchers this way. When you send an email and you put an attachment on the email, how many people can you send it to at once? Right?
Right.
And do they all have to receive it at once? Or do they just open it when they choose to open it in their
Mm-hmm.
inbox?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So this is not something that's grandiose. It doesn't take a magnificent consciousness to do. It's just simply the understanding that this is how it works.
Mm-hmm.
This is how it works. So by intending a specific healing event, trauma release, uh, physical or whole self or holistic healing in the case of a physical condition. I'm not saying that they're instantly going to be healed. I think that's certainly a potential if one's consciousness is at that, is at that degree of understanding, which mine is not. But what does happen is people experience these healing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
They experience energy healing sessions. I didn't even specify the amount of time or the range of time. I can either intend that it be at a certain time or at a time and place of that person's choosing, which is what I almost always do. People experience energy in their bodies. They experience, in some cases, body adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
Things, including things that I have no idea how to do, because that wisdom exists in the 0 point field, and that person might have a closer association with that kind of healing than they do with some other kind. So that's what they experience. But they could also experience something that they've never experienced before in their lives. I don't dictate how.
Yeah.
It's just the intention.
Right.
From a certain place in consciousness that it unfold for them at a time and place of their choosing for this purpose, to heal their back, to heal their emotional wounds,
Yeah.
do whatever.
Yeah. I sort of see you as like the appointment calendar connector of energies. Like a messenger, like, okay, Susie Q on September 30th at 2 o'clock is going to have, improvement in her back. Okay, so we've set the message, and then you go and connect to this energy source. And it's like you're putting the electricity together or the message, and you're connecting them together, putting the Lego pieces together. And then boom, the connection's made, and you can step back because
Yeah.
there's a higher intelligence that's like, oh, okay, we're pointing the laser in this direction for this purpose. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Activate the program, push the button, and then it happens.
Yeah. That's what seems to happen.
Yeah.
That's what, at a manifest level, that's what seems to happen.
Yeah. And you have permission. You have a specific goal, an intention, and you're being given permission.
Yeah. Well, it's a combination of my intention from whatever level of consciousness that I am able to operate from.
Mm-hmm.
It's the other person's intention to receive it.
Yes.
Including whatever level of whatever level of consciousness they can operate from. If it's higher than mine, then the overall rises to the higher
Yes.
level of consciousness. And effect, if mine happens to be higher in that particular situation, and I don't mean higher as better, just from a more expanded sense of awareness, then that's where it operates from. And so I can't take credit for it because I didn't do anything.
You showed up with intention.
Yeah. I joined them in an intention. I joined them in their intention. I joined them with my consciousness, with an understanding that consciousness is one, and their intention, and then things happen.
I love it.
We were talking about all these concepts and complexity and simplicity, and my journey has always been one. It's been a drive to go from the complex, to embrace the complex, but to distill it into the simple. And that distillation seems to be a synthesis that operates at what I consider a more advanced or higher level in its simplicity. And then I would expand back out into deeper level of complexity, and that would distill into a even more deeper and advanced sense of simplicity. So this idea of everything resolving in these fundamental modes of consciousness: intention, awareness, expectancy, allowing. That's at the core of of I believe being able to operate at this level of being able to transmit a healing session with a simple intention, because again, the energy follows the intention. So that while it might seem simplistic, it's really as things evolve out of complexity from a spiritual level, from a consciousness level, that unified consciousness is pure simplicity.
Mm. Isn't there a statement, something about the whole universe is inside the seed?
Yes, yes. The ocean is in the drop.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think that's where we all get to, you know, that's where we all get to. And wherever anyone is in that journey is fine. You know, you don't have to. You
It's
don't have to.
optional.
It's optional, but it's inevitable.
Well, I think that my belief is it happens whether you want to see it or not.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still
It's
happening.
optional, but it's also inevitable. It's you know, you can't, you can run away from it now. It feels right to do that. You can run away from it now and forget about it. But it's also inevitable. So as at one point or another, that's, you know, that's how it will be, because we are unified consciousness expressing in these points of perspective, these points of view, and certain life experiences and certain places in time and space. But we return to the source, which is this consciousness, and it's not a bad thing.
That's great. Thank you for taking esoteric, complicated concepts and putting words to them. And for me, images, because as you were talking, I was getting lots and lots of imagery coming in. So there's a third language that's being communicated, which the audience may also be experiencing. And
Yeah.
so as we're coming to the end, I haven't said this before in a podcast, but I encourage the listener, if they're so moved, to spend some time at the end of this podcast and reflect in whatever way, in nature, through a dream, doing some writing, doing some art, having a spontaneous conversation with someone, relating to an animal, make some space for something new to come in. Um, and
Can I
yeah,
offer something
yes.
as a way to play? So what I'd like to do is to express an intention that is optional
Hmm.
for whoever would like to receive it. It's a blessing, and one of those mystical experiences I had was a merging into universal light.
Oh.
Uh, it was actually a death experience in a dream, and I merged into universal light.
Mm.
And so I many years later, I realized that instead of trying to get back to that experience, that already was the experience, because it
Mm.
happened. It happened
Mm.
somewhere in space time, but because I am not space time, I'm not limited to space time. It's always there.
Mm.
And so a thing that I do called a universal light blessing. So so I'd like to offer that to whoever's watching this, whenever you're watching this, however many times you choose to watch this, whatever you choose to gain from it, including being able to transcend it and not to have to watch it anymore because you're already that. So this is a universal light blessing of beneficial expansion of consciousness in all of the areas that Lori just mentioned, in nature, in drawing, in contemplation, and a gentle realization of a higher and grander aspect of who you actually are, who you actually are as consciousness in a way that is comfortable, in a way that is safe, in a way that enhances your quality of life. Okay? Universal light blessing. Right.
Mm,
That's it.
I love it. Thank you. Yeah,
My pleasure.
it's been a delight as always spending time with you.
It's been great. It's been fun.
Yeah, and thank you for all that you're bringing, the frequencies that you're connecting. I can see the switchboard operator. Boop, 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 boop. That's
Well,
an
thanks
old
for offering me this
reference.
opportunity. It's been wonderful fun
Yeah,
and a sense of and we forget these things and we remember them.
yeah.
I'm going to go back to cleaning up my office and cursing because I stubbed my toe. All those things, or something I forgot to do that I'll get in trouble for with my partner. All
Yeah,
those, we stay human, but we're also more than that.
yes.
And so it's so helpful to just remember and remind ourselves so that we're not so cling wrapped around mundane experience. We
Mhm.
still have mundane experience, but so that we can have ease with it all, and then to take opportunities to operate from this this grander level, even if it's only in meditation, even if it's only in nature. I say only. These are wonderful things, and we
Yeah,
are wonderful things. We are
great,
one.
great gateways. Thank you so much, and thank you for s- coming back from that dream. Yeah,
Part of me didn't want to.
and I imagine.
In fact, I got a message that said you don't have to. I also
Mm,
got information that made me decide that I would.
okay.
So I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, our benefit. Thank you. All right. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. If you want to learn more, you can visit my website for podcast and resources at hopshealingtips.com. You can also like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only and is not providing healthcare advice. Please seek guidance from your professional healthcare team should you need assistance.